Welcome to Cabin Fever, podcast by Offsite. I'm your host, Brian Valerio, and I'll be talking to makers, founders, and creatives about the things they're building. This week, we're talking to Matthew Bentley. Matthew is a DJ, photographer, and one of the best dressed people I've ever met. Last summer, he spent a few nights up at our cabin producing, and we sat down to catch up on that experience, his creative process, and what he's got coming up. I hope you enjoy. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate it, man.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian, for having me.
Yeah. Matthew spent a few nights up at our cabin last summer. I'm recording an album, which we'll get into. It was epic and probably the coolest thing that's been done up at the cabin to date, for sure. I was just going through the videos that you and Wojtek produced up there and the music again, and it was so rad. I am really excited to get you back up there sooner than later.
Oh man, it was special. You know, I mean,
Thank you.
I'm used to kind of being, and I mean, it's kind of my thing to just be in nature, in the woods, and usually it's very low tech. You know, between tiny houses, I've been to camping, of course, hiking, like having that, or I can like I have one step, I have some access to power, and like I can kind of run my rig.
Yeah.
Was very, very, very helpful.
That's great. Yeah, so I know that Nick had showed me like some photos of places you'd been posted up before. You've been doing these kind of like retreats regularly for a while to record, to write, to.
Yeah, formally to make music, or at least like intentionally to make music, probably like 2017, 18.
Okay, cool.
It's kind of through a mutual friend of Nick and I's out in Portland. Me and another friend, collaborator, Nigel, 3 times. We kind of went on our first retreat together, and we were up on Mount Hood, rhododendron, and we just kind of locked in for a month, and it was, like real like stove heat, wood stove. I mean, very like very, very, very like high touch on everything. So chopping wood to keep the house warm. Like one side of the house was for this type of production, another house was the kitchen. You had the living room for like, for recess, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely.
Market runs, the work. So each year, more or less, I've kind of made it a habit of mine to just get out of Dodge,
Yeah.
Like 9 times out of 10 is with the intent of making music. Most of that music is never done on one trip, of course. It's like you build the skeletons out of whatever project it is you're doing. And the gift of that is sometimes some of that stuff makes it onto a project. Sometimes, it's not useful for another 3, 4, 5 years. And then you kind of recircle or look at some of your old work that you used to cringe at. And, with new knowledge, you potentially can build on some of those stems.
Right, relevant again, or just spark some idea that like has lingered long enough to.
Yeah, because at least for me, those times were like I didn't know what I was doing for real. It was a lot of troubleshooting and just making noise, and trying to, I guess the formal word now is like interpolate a lot of records that I loved, interpolate a lot of songs that I love, and that's kind of how I learned how to produce music. It's like, oh, I want to make something like this, and I would just like play said song or said type of production on loop all day long and just kind of play along with it, especially now. I mean, I've had like old equipment in the past, but I don't formally have a laptop. So at this era that we're talking about now, call it, I guess that's 8 years ago now. Geez, like the iPad just became like a useful tool in production. They were like the iPad Pro really first came out and it was showing some promise. And I was like, well, if I can carry that, and if there's like a way to export into said piece of equipment or just, export the sessions into a real computer, I just took that chance, so yeah, that's kind of how it started. And to be fair, I mean, that's back then. Now, like, it's a full-on computer, so.
Yeah, you're working on like a proper laptop now.
Yeah, like I have a I have a MacBook Mini,
Yeah,
Mac Mini,
Mac
which is
Mini.
like my desktop at the house for all my serious stuff. But I still use the iPad to this day. I mean, some of those apps are even. I mean, the phone is strong enough to use some of those apps. So if I'm in like on the go, I can just like jot down or make some or jot some ideas down musically and export them
Yeah,
to
totally.
to real machine. So or at least the mix. Like so. So yeah, that's how it started. So and every year, increasingly over the years, whether it's travel or even if it's not necessarily the woods, I've just kind of been like producing on the go.
Yeah, and you hit the road a lot. I feel like you're always
Yeah,
off somewhere rad.
yeah, it's a blessing.
Yeah.
It's a blessing.
What's been like lately? Where you been at?
So lately, man, I'll just like, 'cause I had some goals last year that some music goals that didn't exactly pan out because things just like took off running travel wise and
Hmm.
other types of production. Like, so my personal music stuff got just put on hold. So this year, hopefully, well, not hopefully, I'll be putting out three proper like EP albums
Awesome.
and something a bit more experimental. Experimental meaning something that can be interpolated or interpreted into or reinterpreted into a bit more of a live experience. So so less because I don't technically make music that I DJ. So it's a very different framework that I have to be in to make this and hope people enjoy it more or less online
Hmm.
or in their own way versus what I actually play out and what people know me for. So
Right.
people have learned and loved or appreciated my sets for dance music and house music, which is like my first love, and drum and bass
Hmm.
and a bit more club heavy, energetic stuff. What I love to make the most is more ambient, more soft, more like interpretive music, as I
Yeah,
like to put it.
that's awesome. I guess I never realized that you weren't in your sets, you weren't actively mixing in a lot of your own recordings up until what sounds like coming up is you're probably start to try and integrate them more, find a way for them to kind of use
Yeah.
the music that you're creating to become
Yeah, so
an
I
aspect of the live set.
like my first, so it's funny. So with that, like just to piggyback on what you said, my production, what's the word? The way I make music
Hmm.
is I'm nine, eight, 9 times out of 10 making that kind of music, which is like dance or like hardcore or like extreme,
Hmm.
or high octane. And what ends up happening is like I kind of like Rick Rubin the thing, and I like just start stripping apart as I go along and just
Yeah,
take
yeah.
a lot of those things out to what ends up being what I have the most released, which is more ambient, softer music. So it's there. Like my first record is called Agitator. It was like a very like techno hardcore record, and I just
Hmm.
put it out because it's my first song I ever put out. I didn't know or care. I wasn't marketing it, but I also have kind of like a side career in photography. So a lot of my own art direction goes into my work.
Yeah. That's something I want to touch on definitely later because you're a pretty amazing photographer and
Thank
yeah,
you,
really really
thank
cool
you,
work.
thank
So
you.
we'll circle back to that in a little bit.
For sure, for sure. So yeah, so this year, to answer your question, it's going to be a one project will be proper dance or a club, if you will.
Hmm.
One will be a bit more of that kind of like aggressive, teen angst, if you will, type music, and the third will be kind of a sequel to Coherence,
Okay,
something a
awesome.
bit more stripped back and peaceful. And when which one comes out, not too sure, but the stems are there. What ends up happening is for the most part, I'll make like, I'll just call it a run-on sentence. Like I'll make like a 30-minute track and then clip the parts I love the
Right.
most and then
Yeah.
make a song out of this part, a song out of that part. And that's kind of where I'm at now. So yeah.
That's awesome. I'm psyched for the new stuff to come out. It's awesome. For people listening, Coherence was the album that was in part recorded or produced up at Offsite, correct? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Exclusively offsite, fully.
Entirely.
Yeah, yeah. I
Hell
mean, I
yeah.
think like one record I had from that like, original like Mount Hood session.
Hmm.
I just had it and forgot I had it, of course. And then, when you want to get started, you just start from where you left off, and that's the rest of it was fully at offsite.
Cool. I'm curious, you had mentioned like when you were doing these retreats up at Mount Hood, it was like, you'd chop the firewood, you'd drive to the store to pick up, filtered water,
Mm.
like really did you find I've read a lot from like, novelists, writers, like creative people who kind of like hold themselves up in these outdoor and they write about how like meditative that can be and like beneficial to their work to have to like go out and like start the fire in the morning. It just becomes like, I guess, ritual in a sense. Like, did you find that having those kind of non-work related like necessities that you just do not get in this city where you just kind of can roll out of bed and your days are just structured so differently? Was that, I don't know, was that like annoying or it was like, no, like that got me jazzed up?
No, it's actually quite rewarding
Yeah.
at the end, right, or at the finish line, so to speak, because like any, at least for music production, things very quickly, even if it's over the course of 2 days, get monotonous.
Hmm.
The same sound you've been trying to figure out, or same thing you've been trying to do, like cabin fever is very real,
Yeah, yeah.
or as we call it in music, like demoitis. You might make something and love the first draft of it so much that you don't want to touch it, but it needs more or needs less or needs some help. So those little like kind of mundane trips to do this, to shovel, to take a walk around the property, to just get some air, to like make lunch, ended up providing just like a lot of mental clarity, actually. More mental clarity than making the music.
Yeah, that
So
it's so fascinating how
yeah, and
that
you're
stuff
and you're and
works.
you're kind of stuck, right? Like in those cases, you can't just like I just can't walk to a store. Like
Yeah.
I have to get out. At the time it was February, so like it like dumped snow on the on the mountain, so it wasn't exactly like convenient at all. Like I needed to go out to town to go get whatever, so I had to like it was work every time.
Hmm.
Go and do that, and then eventually February into March. You started seeing some green and like maybe like in this case, you had the privilege, if you will, to be pretty close to Timberline Lodge. I don't know
Yeah,
if you've been up there.
I have. Yeah,
And
yeah, it's
yeah,
gorgeous.
and that's like for us at least for me, I had never been that. It was like a scene in The Shining was shot there,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
like some pop culture like reference. It was like pitch white up there, like it was night and day. We were already 5,000, 6,000 feet up, and we had to go another whatever it is to get to the peak and get to the lodge,
hmm
and it was just like visibility. Just it felt like a
that,
movie. So it
yeah,
was like that was like cool. Like I just go back and take whatever that feeling is and commit it to a record somehow, or whatever. So that was pretty sick. So those little trips helped quite a lot. Those little duck offs, going to like the neighborhood bar or something, and like
totally. Yeah,
seeing like
yeah. Were you
seeing
guys
like
going to like government camp bars, like
yeah,
Rathskeller and
yeah,
Charlie's? Yeah,
actually,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Seeing like local talent shows and like some guy play guitar and just open mics and stuff like that. Like that
Totally.
was
Yeah, I've
sick.
seen many a show at the Rathskeller.
There you go.
Yeah,
So a lot of those, a lot of those, a lot of those.
that's awesome. Did you grow up in New York? Are you from
Yeah,
here
born and
originally?
raised. I'm from Queens.
All right.
Um, my parents are from Jamaica country. I was born in Jamaica, Queens. Never left. Went to kindergarten, elementary school, middle school, junior high school, and college in Queens. I lived there, and yeah, lived there till fairly recently. Yeah, during the pandemic, I moved to Brooklyn
Yeah,
the first time. So yeah, all the
that's
way
awesome.
through.
Yeah, yeah.
Many eras have been gone, many ruins, many shadows of New York, the ever changing,
I know. Yeah.
I've been blessed to see.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. I've been here 14 years now.
Okay.
and I feel like I've seen it through at least like three iterations, but it's like that's just a fraction of.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's amazing. And but how did you end up in Portland, or that was just
So, mutual friend company, Nick used to work with for Camp Grizzly.
yeah? Shout out
Uh,
Camp and Dan.
shout out to Dan.
Yeah.
They used to come to New York. This is 2013, something like that. They were like five people deep at the time,
Hmm.
and they came to New York quite often to do Adidas campaigns. We have a mutual friend, Brock Fetch, the photographer, and Brock put us in touch more or less with Camp to DJ some of those gigs. And yeah, what started off as just like work slowly turned to work and after work drinks,
Hmm.
rap parties, and we just actually for me, Nigel and I and our friend Remy Banks, we just performed. We just developed an actual friendship over call it at those original 3, 4, 5 years, and slowly but surely, like anytime they were in New York, they hit us up, even if it wasn't work related.
Yeah.
And then one year, I forget which year it was, like Dan was just like, "Yo, you want to do our holiday party?" Like, and it just became, I want to say like 5 years straight. Nigel and I, or
That's
Nigel, Remy
awesome.
and I, or we would just, even if we weren't playing, we were just invited as like unofficial staff to the holiday
Yeah.
parties. Blessings to them. They bring us out, put us up, and have us just in Portland. So that's how we kind of first cut our teeth in Portland. Thankfully, they were there. They showed us around, showed us what to do, where to be at. And, naturally our music careers kind of took off and we find spots on our own. And yeah, and then Dan was just like, so hit me and Nigel like, well, what's next?
Yeah.
And at that stage was the music production phase of our lives. And he had this cabin that no one was using ever.
What was
And
Dan's cabin?
it's Dan's
No
cabin,
way.
yeah.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 So he was just like, pull up, tell me the dates. I'll make sure you have your starter kit. And it was just absolute gift and blessing.
Yeah.
And,
That's awesome.
yeah, and that's Murder She Wrote on the why we were in Portland thing.
That's cool.
And yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Camp Grizzly is and Dan are both so rad. They came when this must have been 2011. It was the first year I moved to New York, and Nick hit me up and said, "Hey, we're coming to shoot." They were shooting a music video for a young kid. I can't remember who it is, but he ended up going on to do some pretty rad stuff for a while, but it was like his first, there was like zero budget, absolutely like camp was a few years old, I think, at that point. And he's like, "Can we crash on your floor?" And so they rolled up, Dan and Tony and Nick and I think one other guy. And I lived in this like ratty loft in Clinton Hill
Okay.
with one other guy, and they slept on my they lasted like half a night, and I think Dan like packed up and was like, "I'm going to a hotel.
That's facts.
We have enough budget for a hotel for this one. Let's go." They were like on air mattresses that they picked up at the airport, like
Got
lounge or
it.
something. Yeah.
Got it. Got
But
it.
yeah, there is such a good group of guys that have like come through that place, and um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, I knew that you were involved with Camp Grizzly in some aspect through Nick, but that's rad. I didn't realize that it was like
Mm-hmm.
playing, essentially their
Mm-hmm.
in-house DJ for everything.
For real. For real.
Yeah, yeah. And like, when did you start playing music?
Man, this is. I'll give you the. So growing up, I had zero interest in music as a career. Of course, my background is again Jamaican, so music is in my life. Never
Hmm.
wasn't gonna be. But as a career, Nigel, Remy, some of the guys I mentioned before, they were already rapping from like high school days, so they were already in music. And my background was a bit more. I had some creative pursuits in my teenage, early 20s, but I wanted to be an entrepreneur. Like
Hmm.
my goal was to be business something, whether that be management, whether that be some sort of backline administrative something. That was just kind of my dream, to be an entrepreneur. And what? Not sure. It could have been anything, but that was my dream. So, I kind of went for college for that and was just even off campus was like studying business books all the time. I kind of provided that asset for them. I was a bit more savvy in emailing and communications and just all the boring, thankless work that they had no interest in doing. And yeah, kind of just wanted more advice on. So just kind of rolling with them between high school days, this is 2006, 7, 8,
Mm-hmm.
straight into college, straight after college, just kind of crew. Like, we were only kids from Queens. And so even before work, we all be the only one taking the train home together
Yeah.
at 4 a.m., after the party. So we just thought that's how we all got cool. And fast forward 2012, I went to South by Southwest with them. This collective is called World's Fair.
Mm-hmm.
And the smaller clique was called Children of the Night. Same crew,
Mm-hmm.
smaller faction within the
Smaller group
faction.
within the group.
Yeah, so they were kind of taking off at the time, and they had a big show in South by Southwest 2012. Long story short, that mixtape that they put out that year kind of blew up. This is like blog era, Mishka, sneak, like
Mm-hmm.
streetwear, like fashion brands were putting out mixtape. Danny Brown, The Works, Fool's Gold, all of that. And I mean, I kid you not, one of the shows, I think it's like show number 2, Nigel, 5 minutes, this is a packed crowd, 5 minutes before they go on stage, he's like, okay, you're our DJ, and I'm like, I guess,
Yeah.
never seen a program before, didn't even have my
Man.
laptop on me if I wanted to do it.
Yeah.
Remy had the USB. The house DJ at the time, his name was DJ Laser. Bless you wherever you are. Was kind enough to let us use his laptop. Remy loaded up the songs, and I kid you not, like on stage, DJ Laser gave me a crash course on a mixer, a laptop, what button to press to stop on the left side, what button to press to stop and go on the right side. And he's like, okay, this is your mixer. This is what you do. Here's your volume. Here's your knobs. Go. Just in the fire, So that's first time, I guess, I was behind the decks for real.
Yeah. That's wild.
Then, yeah, then the rest of that trip was just like, iTunes DJing at the time. And, we all got to the airport at the end of that trip, and they were like, you killed it. We need you to be our DJ. And I'm like, I'm good, like that was fun. But, at the time, there was no glamour in being a DJ for real. There was no influencer, there was no perks, there was no nothing. You had to
Yeah.
be, all the DJs I knew growing up were like scratching and like lugging a whole bunch of equipment and turntables. And like, I just wasn't invested in that, at that time in my life. So it was kind of out of sight, out of mind from there. We were all still friends and we still talked every day, but I just kind of put it out of my head. It was just like a cool experience. And then 2 weeks later, maybe like 3 weeks later, Remy calls again. He's like, yo, uh, we're opening up for Nas in London during the Olympics. It's so like far, like it's so like not in my head. I'm not even considering why he's calling me. Like I'm
Yeah.
just like, oh, good for y'all. Like that's crazy. That's dope. And he's just like, well, we're trying to get you in a budget. And I'm just like, well, at the time I had like a full-time job. So it was like, well, I had my first salary job. So I'd
Yeah.
never like taken vacation days. Never taken a day off in my
Yeah.
life. So long story short, same day I got the call. I was like, you're in the budget. Like, let's make this happen, and I called my only real DJ friend at the time, DJ Ern's World, he goes by today. And I was like, don't ask me how or why, or don't ask me how this happened, but in 3 months, I'm going to London to open up for Nas, and I need you to mentor me, point blank. Just teach me how to set up and break down
That is so
Long story
wild.
short, I can't mess up. You know,
Yeah.
like so many words. Like I don't like. I'm not trying to take your job. I don't want to even do this really. But who's going to say no to that opportunity? You know, and I just need you to make sure I don't screw up. Sure as kept. Like I would leave work if we didn't have like World's Fair didn't have an interview or Children Night didn't have an interview or a studio session. I would leave work. I would go link with them, or I would just go to Ern's crib
Hmm.
and he'd like lock me in his basement and be like, "This is a mixer," and he would just do like flashcard like setups. You know, back then you had to like buy 2 or 3 like adapters to like connect the mixer to
Right.
your
Yeah.
laptop. Serato boxes they called it at the time. It's like converter boxes really. She's like, "All right, here's all these wires. Run it, you know, and just keep doing that, keep doing that. Don't worry about scratching. Don't worry about turntables. Don't worry about none of that. Learn how to mix." That was his whole thing to me. He's like, just learn how to mix, learn how to mix. Anyway, that same year, leading up to what was going to be that trip, get another phone call from Remy. He's like, we got this show. It's like this thing called Boiler Room. They just kind of need a DJ
Hmm.
when we're not performing. You know, none of us knew. I didn't know what Boiler Room was at the time. They used to number it back then, so it was like Boiler Room number 4 in New York. You know,
Crazy. Yeah.
and yeah, so no, I was like, sure, whatever. Like I'll play some songs. I didn't think of it as, you know, I wasn't. It's again, like I'm just practicing for the Nas show. You know,
Yeah.
and I was like, sure, whatever. I'll play some songs. It was like 15 minutes. That's what they wanted.
Yeah.
20-minute set. Sure enough, first DJ set ever in front of people was Boiler Room.
So
The
crazy.
the week after or a week or two after, we went to London.
How'd it go? How'd Boiler Room go?
It went great as
Yeah.
far as I know. I wouldn't like, you know, I cringe at that set now.
Yeah, but in the moment.
But in the moment, sure, it was dope because it's still like I'm used to like facing the crowd. The Boiler Room thing was, you know, the crowd's behind
Hmm.
you at all times. So I'm like DJing, but like looking behind me, like I'm like, I'm supposed to do this thing, you know? And yeah, so I mean, it was fun. You know, it was fun. It was still grassroots. Again, I had no attachment to it. Like it wasn't part of my career path. Like I didn't care. I was just playing for the homies. And you know, the funny story is a year later, like a homie was like, "Oh, I play your set in the store all the time." Like, what set? Your Boiler Room set. I was like, "That's recorded." Like I didn't know. Like, no clue. No clue. So just to wrap this story up, we went to London. First show was going to be like this kind of VIP club show. Like they were going to perform in this VIP section of the W Hotel. And you know, it's the Olympics, so like all the basketball players
Hmm.
and their wives are out clubbing, and long story short, the mic goes wrong or something happens with the mic and they're like, "Well, Matty, like you got to play," you know? And I'm like, I don't know what they listen to. Like, I'm like, you know, F it. Like, so I play that set and everyone's like, "You killed it." I'm like, "I guess so," you know, like, and just kept it pushing. And now show was the night after. Then we got booked to play at a festival in Belgium, that same trip. And this is like when Snoop Lion was a thing and like Snoop Dogg was
Yeah.
like a Rasta and he was the headliner. There's this festival called Pukul Pop, which is still around today. Anyway, we got booked to do that. They gave us an hour set on like the dance stage, like they called it dance hall.
Hmm.
There was nothing dance hall about it. It's like a dance EDM stage, and we're rappers. So they're like, "Well, we only got like 20 minutes of music. You got to play the rest of it." And I'm like, "It's 1,000 people in front of me. Like, you know, they don't know us. I don't think they know us." Just point is, that first year was just me getting thrown into the fire every single time, and just eventually just taking a beat. Like clearly, someone wants me to do this,
Yeah.
and I'm like ignoring the shit out of it, and like now I'm like, all right, like y'all got me. Somehow I'm in Belgium, London, and in Boiler Room in 180 days, you know, or less. I 6 months ago, I did not know any of this, you know. So that's my origin story.
That
That's the
must have
origin
been
story.
that's an epic one. It must have been so wild to, yeah, like, come, I mean, just not even being like yeah, this is what I'm trying to do, and just getting like booked in all these cities, festivals, like just keeps getting thrown,
Mental,
not
dude.
thrown at you. You earned it from crushing it at each set, but just yeah, kind of yeah, just manifesting
Yeah.
it as you go.
Yeah, and that's kind of it's kind of like full circle, I suppose. Man, I mean, I guess esoterical with you for a sec, but like it's those moments, wishes, dreams, whatever, intentions that blossom or shape you the most. The
Hmm.
things that you kind of things that you treat like, oh, it would be nice, you know, like the
Yeah,
things that are like,
yeah,
oh, like, oh, that's cool, but like, or the things you do or the things you potentially may wish for that you forgot you wished for, or it's like in the back of your head somewhere, you know, the woo woo universe is like
yeah,
figuring it out for you. And it's always a thing you like try too hard to do or want to make perfect or, you know, have all this like ambition intention for tend to be the least exciting, you
yeah,
know,
absolutely.
once when it's all done. And, you know, yeah, this is kind of my mental mantra today, you know, or like my own, yeah, my framework today is just like, just go, like,
Hmm.
just like cool hand Luke. If it's great, it's great. If it sucks, it sucks. Just do the thing, you know. Like it's no, nothing's any sweat off my back. At least in my case, I had no, at the time, I had no real responsibilities. It was just like this thing is calling you, go do it. It's with your friends, first
Hmm.
things first. Like not some random guy asking you to do stuff. Like none of us were making any money off of it. It wasn't like I had to think about cuts or something. It was just like money was enough to get us there and back and some food in between. And you just kind of roll with it. And those opportunities end up being the most special, you know, or you have the most profound or like vivid memories of.
Yeah. And no, I think that's like such a good point. I feel this all the time with my own work and like creative endeavors. The things that I try to force just end up never working out. Like the harder I push at it, it's just like the worse the situation gets.
Yeah.
And at the same time, there'll be like these kind of currents pulling you in other ways or towards other things that are, it's like in the back of my head, I'm like, I know this is the path and got it, but I still have a lot of trouble kind of, I don't know, letting go and just like going with the flows. But
Same,
yeah,
same.
yeah. No, that's really awesome. And so what are you doing now? Where can people find you around the city?
Man, what ended up happening after that kind of origin story or 2014 on, World's Fair went on tour, another international tour. We were just doing our thing. Things went well. You know, naturally as a group, we all have to like, you know, as we grow older, we have to figure out our
Hmm.
thing, you know, or our ways. And I just felt like, with the exception of like making ends meet in New York and playing, obviously playing all the clubs and playing all the bars and the this and the anything, odd jobs, if you will, corporate parties. I just kind of started to find more value in burgeoning markets, you know. So London was that at the time, but it was still, you know, sister to New York.
Hmm.
So I wouldn't really say that, but I kept going back to London and playing on like, you know, I made a lot of friends over those first couple of years, of course, and they were DJs and promoters, so they booked me for everything and different bars, different clubs, and slowly but surely that led me to Asia for the first time,
Hmm.
and that led me to markets that World's Fair didn't go as a group, you know, and just by some off chance, this promoter or this collective in this part of the world, favorite record was a World's Fair record from way back when, or knew me by
Right.
proxy of this guy, or saw me once, or used to hear about me and my proximity to the crew on blogs, or just see me in a music video, whatever,
Hmm.
and ended up just like, you know, it was fun, but just like doing my best to plant a flag everywhere I went,
Hmm.
whether that be radio or playing again at kind of the same kind of grassroots venues or with, you know, just hopping on a lineup or like playing without my name being on a lineup and just doing quite a bit of that over the course of, yeah, many years. So like Southeast Asia became like a very big destination for me.
Hmm.
So between there and Hong Kong, and then eventually Japan, and then more a bit more on this side of the world. Mexico City became a big hub. It's like found more value or more added value in playing internationally than I do just local, you
Yeah.
know. And then that kind of led to naturally me realizing as I got older and new talent started to just come up in the city or everywhere for that matter. They were only going to pay me but so much to play other people's music,
Hmm.
you know, or not that fame was any interest of mine, but like I was only going to make a career out of this by one, starting or attempting to make my own and somehow synthesizing my relationships over the many, many years into a business of some sort, you know? So that and the pandemic, of course, led to quite a bit more like offline interpersonal relationships, which led me to be able to kind of create a programming consulting business for bigger companies, you
Yeah.
know. So there's no shortage of DJs. Technology has made that even easier and there's no barrier of entry at all. And I feel like not and that's not a complaint at all in my end, but that's just allows me to kind of like like parry or carry the torch or
Yeah.
put the right person in the right venue or put me in a situation where, you know, I can book a festival on this side of the world or in New York for that matter with international talent and do what is fun for me and which would be a nightmare for some of these companies in the city,
Yeah.
uh, a bit easier, you know, like as an artist, I can speak their language, you know, and yeah, and then, you know, yeah, as a production kind of all in-house creative myself, traveling leads you to a friend letting you borrow a camera and you kind of fall into like art directing your own things and you develop an eye for just seeing the world, you know, and you can only do that by seeing the world in real life. So taking a bunch of pictures led me to some photo contracts and shooting my own album artwork, or at least knowing how I want it to be shot, meeting a bunch of like photographers and other creatives that are like graphic designers or who's like, you know, typeface elites,
Yeah.
things that I like could
Yeah.
never
The
do. Like,
foundry guys.
yeah, them cats. And I'm like, I could never do that, nor will I ever have the patience to do that. So like, just like being able to like art direct my life around my own creative endeavors and for other creators and for other, I guess, companies, more corporate end establishments or institutions for
Hmm.
museums as well, galleries I've done,
Yeah.
membership clubs.
You do MoMA quite often, right?
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
done MoMA a few times, most recently, almost a year to the day, actually, with the Lot Radio. So that's a residency I have with Nigel 3 times. And we've been with the Lot as well for, this is year 9. So this inception of the Lot started in 2016, I think,
Yeah.
15 or
It's an
16.
institution here.
Yeah, so we were blessed enough to have that same kind of a homie pass the torch to us,
Hmm.
and the institution became that, you know. And yeah, just like little weird, you kind of stick with the right thing, it bleeds and blends and may potentially blossoms into something else, and you just kind of stay awake and aware of how trends are moving. You know, I found myself in the right place at the right time.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty awesome. I think to like touch back on the like larger creative direction and like endeavors that you've been doing. I was like blown away when I saw your work, and I'll link to this in like the show notes so people can check it out. But I feel like, when I saw the photographs you had taken up at Offsite and the video that Nick shot with you, and just like the typography that's on the album cover, and if you scroll through your Instagram, like it's all so beautifully packaged and like it sounds like
Thank you.
pun not intended, like coherent.
Thank you. Thank you.
But
Thank you.
yeah, there's like these photos that you shot that I had seen previously and like didn't realize they were yours, but I think it's one of your friends that you shot, and he's got like a military vest on. It's like stuffed with dandelions, and it's like shot,
Yeah.
and it's all just like so beautiful. And then when you like put that imagery to the backdrop of your music, it just like clicks perfectly. Like there's such a clear through line through all of it.
That means a lot, man. That means a lot.
No,
That means a
it's
lot.
rad. Yeah, it's really really rad.
And I guess that I mean I'm a bit, man, anal's not the right word, but I'm a bit like creatively OCD in that way, where like
You need
yeah, a
to get
lot
it
of
right.
those things, right, to get it right. A lot of those things need to, for lack of better words or no pun, like be coherent, you know, even if it's just from my own head. No one ever gets it, or
Hmm.
they get it 10 years down the road, or they value it somehow in the future. That's enough for me, you
Yeah.
know? And again, back to the same thing, like things are so high octane now. It's nice for myself and others as well who do this equally as well, and if not better. It's nice to like put together an entire cohesive package of something, and it's just like
Hmm.
it's not like you might have the ideas, all the ideas lined up in your head in sequential order and the calendars sorted out. But like to execute all of that takes time. And yeah, it's nice to hear, you know, when or see the fruition of said thing manifest or affect others, you know, in an introspective way.
Yeah. What are you excited for coming up? Like what's on the agenda? I know you had mentioned it. You've got these projects coming up.
Hmm.
Three kind of goals set for this year.
Yeah. Three goals. Kind of, I don't know if it's bad enough to call it this, but like my like opus, if you will, like
Hmm.
what I hope it is a project called CERN Gully, which is a combination of some of the photos you saw. It's like
Hmm.
it was meant to be my introspective pre-pandemic, and that kind of ruined my whole trajectory, which ended up helping at the end. A combination of actual live experience with production, kind of, I guess, for lack of better words, gallery and score. And that would be like the kind of my all-encompassing purpose for the year, putting all those pieces together, and then and obviously in between travel. I'll be in Mexico City next week for their art week, Zona Maco.
Hmm.
I go every year. A friend of mine has a gallery there, and over the years, I've just been kind of putting together little events and activations down there in February.
That's awesome. What a
And
good time to get out of the city and go to
oh
Mexico
my
City
God,
too.
oh my God, back to what you just said, man. Like I'm in the cold now, and I guess I mean, you never get used to it, but just little dip offs like this, like a week here, 2 weeks here, it's necessary. I would lose it, you know. So that's next week. And then the following, what's looking like end of March, April, I'll be back in Asia, Indonesia for the first time, and back to Japan for some more work, some more kind of full wide ranging work. And then summer's off to another hit, you know. I'm sure the life will drag me through the summer will drag me as it does, you know.
Yeah.
But that's my 6 month trajectory. So the ideal dream with all the things I mentioned, with the exception of maybe one project, will all be out or released in some way, including visuals in the next 6 months. So one a month, one every 6 weeks, something like that.
All right, awesome. Well, we'll be
Yeah.
keeping an eye out for sure. Where can people find your music, your photography, creative work?
Music, Instagram is kind of where I spend most of my time at Matthew Bentley. In Jamaica, we don't pronounce our T's. So my dad sounds like when he calls my name, Matthew Bentley. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of the ats everywhere.
Cool.
And MatthewBentley.com, of course. You can see some of the work. And yeah, I think they should just stay posted to that.
Thank you so much, man. It was so good catching up with you.